Thank you. Welcome back to another edition of the Rise podcast, where we talk about issues that matter to women in broadcast, in media and entertainment tech. I'm your host, Toria Farrell. So whether you are a broadcast engineer, if you're in post-production or you're aspiring to be in that, in marketing, in data products or C-suite company leaders, you've got a home here at the Rise podcast. We do really love hearing from you. Thank you for getting in contact. Don't be shy. If you've got topics you'd like us to address or cover, then do let us know. And if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, you can get notifications when the next episode drops if you subscribe. Also, bookmark the Rise website. Everything about Rise, what they're doing, the initiatives, events, a job board, are on the Rise website, www, I don't know why I said www, everyone knows that's the same thing, risewib.com. So today we are focusing on mentors. And I like this statistic. I used a snippet of this in the last episode when I was talking to some mentees, and I'm going to use it again and grow it a little bit. The Mentor Click study showed that in 2024, 98% of US Fortune 500 companies provide mentoring programs to their employees. And 25%, for over 25%, have mentoring for emerging leaders for executives, mainly because of its positive impact on the culture of the company, on the development of employees, and also critically employee retention. We know mentoring matters, and a diverse workplace makes a positive impact both on the individual but also on the organisation, and it's really good for business. The Rise mentoring programmes around the world wouldn't be possible without the mentors and them giving their time. There is much to delve into about being a mentor and the benefits it brings. I'm joined by two Rise mentors, accomplice leaders in their own fields. Dara Urquhart, the COO, Chief Operating Officer at Red Bee Media, and Laurissa Yeung, Shea, Broadcast Bookings Application Owner at Warner Brother Discovery. So welcome both.
Hello,
thanks,
nice to be here.
Nice to be here.
So that's interesting, my first little introduction. Look, I think we're under no doubt that a diverse workplace really matters and makes a difference. So I'm going to come to you first, Dara. You, last year, were receiving the Business Leader Award at the Rise Awards. Congratulations for that. And you were commended particularly on creating a positive culture and demonstrating balance as both an approachable mentor and a leader. I mean, I think those two things sort of go hand in hand a lot of the time. So, you're in a position of leadership, quite a lot of pressure on your time. So why did you come to the decision to use some of your time to become a Rise mentor?
So I became aware of the scheme through a colleague a few years ago who was a mentor. So it was really at that point I volunteered. I hadn't done it before. And the reason I wanted to do it and still do it both at Red Bee and for Rise is that I think as a woman it's very easy to downplay your achievements, to not have any time to step back and really look at your achievements from a different perspective, the pressures of work, life outside of work, etc. So really it was only a small number of years ago that I thought, actually, the job I do, I am a successful woman in leadership, and like it or not, there is power in my experiences, and I actually think it's really, really important for me to share those experiences in any way I can. The reality of the world we live in is that people, whether it's women, those of different race, low socioeconomic groups, disabilities, etc., they are disadvantaged in our society, and that's due to thousands, 100 years worth of social constructs. So actually, you were talking about the economic benefit of diversity and equality in the workplace. It was actually 200 years ago that Mary Wollstonecraft first advocated for equality for women in order to harness their intellectual and economic capability for the wealth of society. But, we are still having that conversation today. It's a very, very slow, very incremental journey, and each of us is building on the wins or the successes of the past, and those can be large or small. So really, I meant to continue that and to give a small part back to people and help make people's starting line a little bit more equal to those next to them.
And I think that leadership, leading from the front and that sharing of knowledge and championing those minds is so important. And there's still a long way to go. Another stat that was a little bit disheartening was for female entrepreneurs, that they are getting less investment. I think it's even dropped from 2.3% to 1.8%. So it is those we have to constantly be reiterating but asking for action. And that comes when you're into a leadership role. And we'll come to as well the personal side of things, so you're giving forward, but also what you get back in sort of return. So you've got I just was struck by your really rich career kind of history from scheduling to traffic and transmission into kind of application. Yeah. How did you come to being a RISE mentor? I mean, and do you feel that your background helped you relate to your mentee?
So for me, I was actually a mentee in 2020, and after meeting so many amazing women across different areas of the industry, different levels as well, I was asked by the mentoring manager at the time to come back and mentor. And for me, at the time, and this is 5 years ago now, it wasn't really something that had occurred to me that. And now you've sort of like put it together like this. Actually, I do have quite a lot of experience, but just like Dara said, it never occurs to you. It's just something that you've sort of grown with time and you sort of go with it. But at the time that I was asked, and I was telling Dara this story earlier, that my daughter was at primary school. She was about 6 or 7 at the time. And when she came home, she was really upset because some boys had told her at school that girls can't play football, and the other thing was that they can't play computer games. And she was like, but I play computer games all the time. And it struck me that how young children are, and to be able to say these kind of things. And we instantly had a conversation. I said, well, Mummy works in technology. I play on computers all day. That's my job. And we spent the time sort of doing that. And it was just funny how the two different sort of like the offer of being a mentor and that conversation came together at the same time. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And the shock for me was that, firsthand, that at this age, that children are learning sort of these, I don't know what the right word for it is, just that these sort of like stereotypes of where boys, girls, men, women, regardless, kind of should
givens
be.
That they think they have to play by.
Yeah.
Very similar in my household. My daughter also is a footballer. She came home with a mission to make a difference to that. So she, create a day where it was girls only football, but also a referee so that girls and boys could play together.
Fantastic.
It comes down to that role modelling. So, if we are, as women, being humble, we think it's rather humble by saying, "Oh no, I'm not doing very much." Don't make a fuss. Be humble.
Exactly.
Don't stand out too much. Just in case somebody says, "Well, what to do about that?" But then all of that then replays that script, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it reinforces those stereotypes. And what was really interesting for me as well was the next day, my daughter went back into school, and she was like, "Oh well, you're all wrong."
Yes,
brilliant.
And for me, the mentoring has played a huge part in terms of my career path in the last 5 years. Everything that has happened and the opportunities I've had has sort of grown with being a mentor as well.
Yeah, it's been nice into my next question, because as you were a mentee previously, how do you think that has influenced your approach as a mentor?
I was really lucky. My mentor I was paired up with, I felt really sorry for her because I think I was a little bit difficult, because I had applied. Let me tell you why.
You weren't. You can't think that.
I'm not sure that. You see,
what happened was I'd applied in 2019, and at the same time I'd applied for a job where I was working now in a different role as a business analyst. And in my head, when I'd applied for RISE, I'd taken voluntary redundancy, and I had in my head had a year off, and had plans. But lots of really amazing roles came up, and everything just, all the stars aligned. And as they did, I got offered the role at Warner Brothers Discovery just as I got the approval, the application to join as a mentee. So one of the sort of first questions is, what do you want to do? What's your career path? Do you want to work on your CV? I didn't want to do any of that because I'd already done it all already. But What was
what a
brilliant,
change, though. You've gone through voluntary redundancy, which does actually do something to, it takes a while to process all of that.
It's not for everybody, and I think I have to put a caveat there, but for me it was the right time, and from that opportunity, as I see it, it grew from there. But meeting my mentor, she helped with my transition, my pivot into this business analyst role, and it played a huge part it shaped my brain in terms of the confidence and being able to speak to a like-minded woman. And on my application, I wanted somebody who was like-minded, with children, a couple of years older than me, just to understand what my career path might be in the future, what opportunities could I have. And she opened up all those doors for me. It was amazing.
And circling back now as a mentor, is that then that you've managed to kind of inhabit that mindset? We talk a lot about mindset and being able to
flexibility, adaptability, because no one person's the same, no one conversation is the same either, and everybody's at different stages of their life.
Yeah, and that's part of that dynamic, is that you are. It's not. I think there is a perception that the mentor is sort of the Yoda character, full of great wisdom, and there is an empty vessel here that you need to pour information. But it's a much more of a dynamic about assisting somebody in their own mindset, their own ideas, and
it's a two-way conversation.
Yeah. Have you ever been mentored?
I haven't actually. So when I first mentored, I was a bit, oh my goodness, what do I do? Where's the manual? So I have been, I've always been supported in my upbringing, and always been, I have three brothers, and my mother always worked, strong family history of female, mothers who work, etc., throughout the family. So there was, so there's never been any doubt in my mind about, I work, I progress, I have a career, I can do whatever I want, etc. And I've also been well supported, and my capabilities been recognised throughout my different workplaces. So I think that gave me kind of a good understanding of the benefit of support. And I think I approached the mentor role just from what can I do to support you? I don't have all the answers actually. So for me it was useful just to try and create some sort of framework to help my mentees. So often we'll have a conversation about what do they want from the sessions or from me. Are there some particular strengths and weaknesses that they want to talk about? And that just kind of helps frame the conversation. And my experience is often, actually, I don't feel it is a conversation, and my role is just to help unlock. Because everyone I've worked with, they're really capable, really capable, competent people who innately do know what their challenge is, or the thing they want to work with is, or they know the next step they want to take, but perhaps don't believe. So a lot of my role has just been about trying to extract that and help the person guide themselves. No,
it is, and that support as well, because you kind of described beautifully a very wraparound support, both personally and in your workplace, and then that has lent itself to your ability to move through your career and move up through your career, because you've had that constant, and that network support all the way through is so critical. True. And not everybody has had that, and that's
the reality, right? Isn't it? We all assume that it's fine. I've done it. Why can't anyone else do it? And it's because they haven't had the same starting point or the same that same support. It's so true. I think the other thing. I have my own children as well. We all have our own childhood experience to draw upon too. But really, the greatest benefit to children and people is the finding the positives. What can you do, and focusing in on what you can control and what you can do, rather than getting stuck into that negative spiral of I can't do it. And it's so easy for anyone to do in any moment. And of course, the trick is to observe it, recognise it, use it, but not to be pulled into the downward spiral.
I think sometimes people are a little reticent about taking what they perceive as a risk. And that can require a little bit of a push. I think about it as, doing a skydive and you're just on that precipice. You've been planning for this, you want it, but suddenly when you're there, and sometimes that mentor is just, take that step and having support around you so that as you take that transition or change or put yourself out there, and not everybody is terrific at kind of doing that, or it might be the opposite. It's like, whoa, slow down, take a step back. What are you doing? Have a think about it. No. So from your experience, what do you think the sort of key skills are as a mentor? What would you, if you had a couple of top 3 things that you think are key for that relationship to really bloom and make a difference to somebody?
I think, coming from a mentee and mentor perspective, it's the trust. When you apply to be a mentee, I remember feeling nervous, thinking, is it going to be a safe space? What are the expectations? And whether what can you talk about, what can't you talk about? It's the trust that you build with your mentor. It's not always guaranteed. It depends on what you talk about, but I feel like in the last couple of relationships I've had with mentee and mentor, and myself as a mentee, the trust has been there, and we can talk openly about everything without judgment, with great sort of expertise that's returned as well. And it turns out that quite a lot of what happens to you has happened to other women. So it's not just sort of like the mentor that you've received, it's the network. And it's amazing how much the shared stories that we have across the board. So the trust, and the shared stories also sort of links in with the knowledge, I guess, as well. I want to sort of link that with expertise, because it's your life, sort of like your work experiences has linked to that skill set, so be able to adapt to it. And if your mentor can't help, there are other mentors and mentees that can help you as well.
Definitely that network, because you just no idea what that impact that conversation might have on somebody, and they might be open about all this happening. Otherwise it might be something that they, kind of mull over later, and then it is that, okay, you come to me and we have specific kind of ideas of where we might like to take this time, but also let me put you in contact with this person, or so it becomes a greater sum of the whole parts, whatever that phrase is. Yeah.
But I think, going back to what Dara was saying earlier, that there is no set template, it's not prescribed, so the flexibility is key as well, to be able to adapt to the different situation or the different conversation you're going to have that time, or what's happened in that person's career life or life experience that's happening there and then as well.
Yeah, it's very true.
Because it impacts each other, doesn't it, as well?
Quite a few people as well worried, I think, in that application that it's very formal, that they have to put on a face, they have to be sort of a version of themselves, where actually we are at our best when we are comfortable and relaxed and are able to be ourselves. And I think that's where also diversity comes in. So, if you feel you have to perform or say things in a certain way, if you can be yourself, all of that is going to come, and you're more likely to be able to develop yourself and to change any mindsets you need to change. If you were to pick out a key skill about mentoring, what would you?
Well, I really like people. I'm really curious about people, and that's just in work, outside of work. So I find that really useful, just for getting to know your mentee, or trying to understand where they've come from, where they want to go. So I have that natural curiosity. So I find that quite useful. It's quite good for breaking the ice. Of course, you need to be able to listen. And I think also it's, I remember I went on a training course once, and this was years ago. It's like an early leadership one, or managing teams, and one of the components of the course was Myers-Briggs, the different personality types. But what was most amazing about that for me was just the fact that, people are different. It was just, it's so obvious, isn't it? It's so obvious. But actually understanding that and learning to value what you might see as slightly difficult or alternative behaviour. So I found that recognition is also really useful in these relationships.
I've used the same tool, because my default setting is, as an introvert, I can be perceived as just being difficult. I've had to learn that in the hard way over the years, but being able to use that as a tool to sort of, you may not always get it right, but you're in the sort of like, it's a starting point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really
it's a
useful.
great tool. Yeah.
We've talked about a little bit about the way you outwardly present yourself and how you work and how you communicate about how you work is really important. Yeah. So yes, so I'm an introvert. I like to work in this way, and so these things are going to work and these things not so much. And sometimes people either don't necessarily recognise that, or they think, oh, I need to push that to a side because I need to be, loud and or fly by rather than having things structured. I think listening is sort of a really key skill, isn't it? I wonder if there's a tendency to sort of rush in and want to fix things. Oh, you want to be in this career, right? Let's work out. This is exactly how you do. Let's find. You could rush in and want to try and fix things when quite often people really want to come to their own realisations about where they want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's quite an important part of starting the mentoring conversation is just for your mentee to be clear that actually, I don't have the answers, and it is much more about drawing out, as we said, about drawing out their thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I did put. I was thinking about this earlier as well. Just there is an aspect of looking into the future, but it's based on the conversations that you have, because many times, and I think I was probably like that as a mentee, you don't have full confidence in yourself, in what you can achieve, even though you've already achieved a lot. And as a mentor, you can pick out some of these traits where you can see how great people already are, but they can't see it themselves. So looking into the future a little bit, and it's those moments where you can see what that person can achieve, and they're, and being able to help guide them to that fulfillment as well.
Isn't it funny that we spend, especially in all our roles, we use data. We strive to find data. Everything is about data-driven decisions. And yet that same data applied personally, we choose to ignore a lot of the time.
It's like, no.
So, well, but what about this and what about that? That's clear data. Actually. And then you have to sort of associate yourself with that data. Say, oh, actually, I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I think time and time again, I see even very successful women still saying, well, I'm not sure about that, or I don't want to. And it's sort of being able to own that evidence and work on that and enjoy it. We should be enjoying our successes really.
Definitely.
And so have you got a favourite sort of aspect maybe of being a mentor, a moment where you kind of something clicked, thought, oh, I've really made a difference. That's something that's happened as a result of me being a mentor?
It's those light bulb moments, I think, where you may have the conversations at the time, but sometimes you're just not ready to take on board because you're not in the right headspace. It's not the right time. Life is going crazy, work is going crazy. But for me, in the last few mentoring partnerships that I've done, it's those light bulb moments where we've caught up for a cup of tea or something like that, and they've told me, oh, so you know what we were talking about then? Or this has just happened. So those kind of things are, it is the long game. It doesn't always happen instantly. So it's the light bulb moments that I really love. And there is, I think you were talking about a little bit about sort of shared backgrounds and everything like that. And I think my last mentee with Kavita, who was also in your cohort, some of our shared backgrounds, the fact that we're both first generation British born, and our growing up where her parents owned a convenience store, my parents owned a takeaway, those kind of things actually linked us sort of closer. But there's so many shared experiences that you can have with your mentee that sort of like lends itself.
Yeah, it's those shared stories, aren't they? Because they really do have a foundation then where you can then start to unpick what you need to, where you want to go. And I really resonates with me about not, some people are going to shoot off like rockets, other people are all slow growers. I'm one of those. I was mentee in 2023. I think it's only now, 2 years almost later, that I'm reaping the benefits of that mentoring. And so that's something that I've sort of thought, maybe there's something wrong with me. No, it just took some time. And, all things come to those that wait. So there we are. Dara, is there something as sort of a part of your experience as a mentor that sort of surprised you?
It's probably is the long game part, like you said, Laurissa. Because you're in the moment talking to people about very specific things or scenarios or practical examples, and I think it is those conversations afterwards, several months afterwards, where I can think of. One of my mentees, she said, "Oh, you really helped me because after we had these sessions, I applied for this role and I understood that actually my work was recognised and respected, because a lot of our conversations was about, well, how, what is the value of the work? How are people perceiving you?" Of course, I think she was possibly focusing on the negative points rather than the positives. So that was really, really nice. And you kind of think, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Because it's not a huge investment of time as a mentor, I don't think. It's not, of course there's time, but other than that, it isn't difficult. It is just spending some time, having a conversation.
Asking questions.
Yeah.
We just like to ask questions,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that curiosity.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, mentoring is a two-way dynamic. And I think that lends the question to what if you've learned things from a mentee in that two-way. I know that a programme the BBC ran where they did reverse mentoring, so that mentee was really and that for some people they found that quite. I wouldn't say challenging because that sounds like negative, but they kind of were surprised by, goodness, actually, I thought because I've been in this career for X number of decades that I really haven't got much to learn. And then they found that this breath of fresh air coming from a perspective really changed them. I had a conversation on the Rise stand with, again, one of the Rise mentors, and he said, I've actually changed how I manage as a direct result of my experience of being a mentor. So I'm wondering if there's something that you've learnt from your mentee.
So I suppose it's all about experience as well. I've been lucky to mentor different people, and a couple of them have come over to the UK, carved out lives and careers, English second language, and I just think that's that in itself is phenomenal, right?
Yes, amazing.
And I'm mentoring them, So I think it's just understanding other people's journeys and their experiences, and perhaps recognising that there's many people have had a much harder path actually, and that's just something to be mindful of in all dealings with people. And I think also, I need to, I want to recognise that everyone doesn't have a plain sailing path and have had different challenges, and if I can do something or encourage people around me to recognise that, but to still see the potential and try and draw it out, then that's probably one of the most important learnings.
You can learn about people's resilience, because you do sort of think, I think people brush that off sometimes, if they've not, they've had to overcome obstacles or just a different pathway, the resilience and the energy that takes. And sometimes we can kind of, feel a little kind of, low, or you just haven't quite got that. And you've got to think, actually, that energy will get you to the next place and things will. So, recognising that is a really important thing. Is there anything that you particularly kind of think that you would have learnt from a mentee from?
I've learnt a lot actually. I think we were talking earlier where most of my career is linear television, and I've changed it, and I've moved into live sports. And just when you think you can't learn anything else, and the mentee that I was paired with last time worked in a technical producer role for live events. So that was it's a breath of fresh air, as you said, where I had my light bulb moments. It was the other way around, where it was, whether it's terminology or whether it's just explaining a diagram of how things work or how studios are set up and things like that. It was a huge light bulb moment for me, and it definitely works both ways.
Yeah. Oh, there's always time to look at a new schematic for something. Oh, how does that workflow go?
Oh, yeah. I love a good drawing, and I love it even more when somebody explains it to me.
Yeah.
Let me just sit here and draw all over it, and I'll explain it to you. That's I'm living the dream.
Happy place.
Definitely.
And I think in the broadcast industry, everything is changing so rapidly. Our technology, we're becoming technologists in many respects, where things move from kind of just predominantly hardware on-prem to cloud-based software, everything.
Exactly.
And software is so, the advantage of it can be upgraded and changed to match what our audiences or what our consumers need and want. So, being able to have a mindset where you're open to change is really, can be really fulfilling, I think, and not something to be scared of. So we talk a lot about networking and partner networking. We talked a lot about that on International Women's Day, about how peer networks are really, really important, both for, your mindset, your career progression, getting that sort of, access to different people in different roles, but also personally. So when things aren't going so well, that you've got some you can go to and talk to. So we've talked a lot about that, about mentees, but do you think that there's what the importance of that is for mentors, particularly people that haven't mentored before? Dara, do you want to?
Yeah, definitely. I think networking in any shape or form is very useful, and I also think probably women do it much less than men. They have more demands on their time. Perhaps if you're a working mother, there's been less opportunity to do that. I think actually, if I did do a Google search on mentoring in broadcast or media, and only 2 hits came up, and one of them was Rise and the other was something in the US. So it sort of just exemplifies perhaps that those opportunities are not as widespread as they need to be.
I mean, I think, is there a perception? I know that Rise would love to have as many as mentors would like to offer their time. Do you think there are some myths about mentoring, that it does take a lot of time and that, you need to have specific training, or that people mix it up with coaching or training? I mean, do you think that there are myths about what mentoring means or involves?
Oh, definitely. I think it's absolutely. It can feel a bit, what have I got to offer? I don't have time to prepare. I'm not trained, I'm not qualified. And of course, if you haven't done it before or experienced being a mentee, then it's useful to have a little bit of, a few ground rules or just guidelines to show how the relationship might be different from coaching or training.
Yeah, I think that guideline bit is important because we, as mentors, we don't have all the answers. We've lived certain life experiences and career experiences which we want to share, but what we're here for is just to sort of make sure that we can help. I have to admit, I have Googled a couple of questions when people have asked me, I'm not going to lie, but it's a learning curve for both of us, isn't it? And it's a really unique experience. But for mentor to mentor as well, that's how I met Dara.
Yeah.
And the network for me is more about meeting, I know it sounds really cheesy, it's the like-minded women, and it's not always been a positive experience for me in the past, but since being part of Rise, I know that I can go to an event, a big event in Excel
people
somewhere, or IPC or somewhere like that, and I will know people. And as soon as you start talking about the network, and people, oh yes, I know about it, and there's a real connection, and it's so welcoming.
Yeah, that's true. And of course, our industry is very male dominated. Actually, fundamentally. So to make your own network within your organisation there's just far fewer like-minded women. To be able to find a pathway into many other organisations, whether it's mentees or mentors, is really good.
And we have some fantastic allies. We're male dominated. We do have a network. I know one of the comments from the audience in Manchester was, actually, I've got some great allies and great colleagues that really support me. However, she says, it just occurred to me, I haven't got a female network. I'm going to get one. She won't mind me quoting that, but because you don't realise that it is a different dynamic, and actually when you are able to talk with like-minded women, that you have, and it is a different feeling. Again, I joked in the room, there was a room of women, it was just so wonderfully wholesome and enriching to be able to have that, particularly when day to day you don't necessarily have that immediately in front of you. So to be able to reach out to a network is vital.
And it's also to be able to meet people within your own company as well, because I've met mentors that I didn't know worked within the same same industry and then the same company. So being able to extend your network within your own sort of little bubble as well, that's been amazing.
I think probably the mentoring network for mentors as well, because I mean, I suppose you might encounter conversations that are a bit difficult. You know, people might tell you things about things that have happened to them or why they've been, that are quite difficult. I suppose also being able to bounce off each other or I've got this tricky problem or, I'm not quite sure how to approach this is probably quite key, because I suppose maybe you do feel a responsibility towards that person, that your advice is really key to them and you want to give them the right advice, I suppose. Do you ever feel nervous about that?
So that's kind of interesting. I haven't had any really difficult moments, counselling asks, requests, because that would be quite difficult. But I do feel a responsibility, especially with some of the women I'm talking to are wondering about what should I do with my career next? Should I do this or should I do that? And that is quite a big responsibility. But what I found is those conversations are more about the person, the individual, aren't they?
Yeah.
You just need to tease out where their head's at. But first of all, when I first had those questions, I thought, I don't know whether you should stay or go. How would I possibly know that? And of course, I wouldn't know that. No. And you as another mentor wouldn't know that either. No. The only person who knows that is your mentee.
Yeah. And that's absolutely fine. That's not your role, is it? Your role is a sounding board of somebody to say, come in and just let's have it all out. Yeah. What's going on with you and where do you want to get to?
I think because my career's been quite varied, it's been able to sort of give me that. There are moments where I think I'm not sure whether I'm giving the right I can't think of the right word, when I'm not giving the right expertise or sharing the right knowledge. But because the mentees who do come through, they are asking about career path and everything, I think I'm a good example to say that it doesn't end with what you decide, and you can pivot, but it's just a little bit of hard work. But if you really want to do it, it can be done.
You are listening to the RISE podcast. Supported by industry partners, RISE's global initiatives empower individuals at every career stage, from youth education to C-suite leaders. As you've been hearing, partnering with RISE brings talent development and a fully beneficial experience for all involved. Become a sponsor. Be part of shaping a more inclusive sector. Find out more at risewib.com or click the link.
Welcome back. You're listening to the RISE podcast, and we've been talking about being a mentor and the impact you can have on a mentee, but also the impact on your own experience on a mentor. So my question really about how being a mentor can impact your own career. There is some studies, I think a couple of companies have done some 5-year studies about those that have been involved in a mentee program, both a mentee and mentor. And it's quite really interesting that those that have become mentors there's a correlation between them and their career progression, and in terms of their being promoted. And so if you are a mentor, you're more likely to be promoted, and that's 2 large companies' studies sort of demonstrated that. So I'm wondering how being a mentor you feel has impacted your career.
Not necessarily promotion. Self-promotion, maybe.
Very good. Very good. We like that.
But more to be braver, to apply for things. I think there was a statistic where when the job description comes out, if a woman doesn't fulfil those skills 100%, we're like, oh no, we won't apply for the role. Whereas if men may have something like 50 or 60% of the skill set, they'll go for it. And it's something to be said to give it a go, because the worst people can say is no. So being able to to have the confidence to do something like that doesn't sound like much, but it can take you to your next opportunity and to learn more skills as well.
Yeah, definitely. Being open and visible. I mean, we talk about visibility a lot with women.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not not only just being visible, it is being able to take those skills and say, I'm going to do those. And their job descriptions drive me nuts, because some of them are like, are just pages and pages, and you just get, it's very off-putting. And I think
it's scary.
The good job descriptions are the ones that really speak to your capacities, your drive, your work ethic, your interest in change, your curiosity, which, might not necessarily kind of work through the kind of corporate speak that sometimes, and it's easy to be put off. And it's very true that, I've had conversations where the guys like, oh, well, I could probably have a go at that. They don't worry. And it's about that risk again, isn't it? Taking the risk. Most companies, even if you're experienced, you're going to move into a role. You're not going to know the local knowledge. You're not going to know workflows. You're not going to know. You have to go and reach in and talk to people and ask those questions. And so you're not expected to know all of that. How could you possibly? But that's an immediate barrier. I'm like, oh, well, I won't know how to do that. They won't think I can do the job. Of course you can, because it's all the underpinning capacities and experience that you bring to that role.
And it's those transferable skills that you need to recognise in yourself. So in terms of career development, it's also important to... The part of career development is recognising what skills you have to offer. And for me, that journey has been really interesting for me to open my eyes and lift and sort of like put it somewhere else and be able to do something. But also, I think going back to my sort of original story about my daughter, for me it's not just about the career development, and it's what Dara was saying, it's paying it forward. And for me, I've been lucky enough to be part of a community and part of a platform to represent my heritage is Chinese, so I'm first generation born, but to be able to represent myself as a woman, but also as a Chinese woman as well in a technology sector. So it's development in general more than anything else, I think.
Yeah. And and having that, kind of knowing your own, your identity, and being, again, we come back to that authentic self. That all the things, all your kind of your history and your experience and your skills, and that you can put those to really contribute to innovation and contribute and have a valuable contribution for yourself and from the organisation, or if you're working, if you're freelance for yourself. Dara, I'll come up to you with the same sort of question.
Yeah,
how do you feel that it's benefit or enriched your own career path?
So a lot of the conversations, all of my conversations with all of my mentees, and they can probably all tell you this themselves, I always say you have to put yourself out there. You can't hide your light under a bushel. You really need to, move out of your comfort zone, give yourself public opportunities, do Rise podcasts, all that type of thing. So just by having those conversations reminds me that I should practice what I preach all the time, not just some of the time. So I think that's very, very valuable. And I think really it's like you, Laurissa, it's just underpinning within myself, taking the time out to understand and recognise my achievements in the workplace as a female leader in business, successful in a male-dominated environment with a lot of technology, and using my experiences for good, and just constantly underlining that and making me do that when I think I'm too busy, or I've got to do something else, or it's outside of my comfort zone. It just forces me to continue with those activities.
And, and when you're being awarded business leader,
I know,
enjoying that thoroughly and not going, well, that was a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're a role model, and that is the thing, and that's something that's lovely to be in that, a role model for your daughter, Laurissa, a role model for your children and those around you, and young women coming into the broadcast industry. Is this for me?
Yeah.
And and enjoying being that role model.
Absolutely, as we were told by Michelle Moore at the great International Women's Days event, which Rise put on, step into our light.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a lovely, lovely place to wrap this conversation up. Thank you very much, Laurissa. Thank you very much, Dara. Really, really interesting. If you would like to come on the podcast, if you're interested in listening, then do get in touch. You can email the team on risewibpodcast@gmail.com, or wherever you're listening to it, comment on the bottom there, and you can get involved. And also, always look at the website, bookmark it. Did I mention that? And subscribe. Did I mention that? I think I did. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more very soon.